Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had City of Death. What happened on that one?
Remind me of the details.
So the Doctor and Romana were in Paris, where there was the evil Count Scarlione, who was secretly a spaghetti monster, who wanted to take 7 copies of the Mona Lisa, sell them for $700 million, which would be enough money to have the technology to go back to before humans existed, when his ship blew up, and stop his ship from blowing up. But then, because he met the Doctor and Romana, he didn't need to sell the 7 Mona Lisas, so it just kind of became a moot point.
But the Doctor realized that he had to blow up the ship because that was the radiation that caused the protoplasm to evolve into single-cell organisms, which created literally all life on Earth.
Yeah, so it still had to happen. And then I don't remember what happened to him at the end. I know the one detective punched him, but I can't remember how he was defeated. Other than that, what'd they do with him? I fully cannot remember what they did with him at the end. So,
but the actor was Julian Glover, who most people know from Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. However, he also was in the first Doctor's serial, The Crusade, playing next to my friend John Bay, who played the Earl of Leicester. One of the few people in the entire Doctor Who canon that I've ever met. John Bay was a wonderful human being. I met him back in, I want to say 1980, maybe 81, when he was here in the Oklahoma City area. He had authored and was performing a one-man play about the life of Groucho Marx called An Elephant in My Pajamas. If you don't know the reference, one of the jokes that Groucho used to make, he was playing a safari hunter, and he said, "This morning I got up and shot an elephant in my pajamas. How I got into my pajamas, I'll never know."
Yeah, so...
Anyway.
Also, someone... I did, in the description of last episode, I posed a question that was quickly put down, basically, because I questioned, if you can have Leonardo da Vinci paint 6 more copies of the Mona Lisa, why do you need to steal the one from the Louvre in the first place? But somebody did point out it's because he's trying to sell them off to all these very rich people, but there still has to be the original crime. Because otherwise, if there's still a Mona Lisa hanging in the Louvre, they're not going to believe that these are genuine.
That's true.
So that is a quick thing. That wasn't even a criticism. It was just a question I had, I kind of think of it as it's one of those things that you think about in the shower 3 days later that doesn't actually matter. So,
well, here's something else too. When did the Mona Lisa become valuable? I know that it ended up in Paris because Da Vinci left Italy. Again, I want to say Milan, but don't quote me on that. Maybe Genoa, and moved to southern France. But when did that painting gain its notoriety and become, world famous and incredibly invaluable?
Yeah. Well, because there's a later episode with the 11th Doctor that's all about Vincent van Gogh and how in his time it wasn't really appreciated. Yeah. But then that's the thing, is they sort of frame it around this museum that's showing off all of Van Gogh's paintings and how incredible he was and how influential he was. And it's like, and yeah, you're right. It's like, where does that line sort of happen? So, yeah, I'm not sure. And how does that fall into the canon of a spaghetti alien trying to sell them off? I also just find it interesting from last episode, and this is not a criticism, this is just an interesting point, that this is the first alien species that requires money to have their evil plan work. In 17 years, I feel like they've never had to do that. But and that's, again, that's not a criticism, it's just an interesting thing, they've never had to deal with that before. You'd think they would just be go and do what they need to do.
But a lot of on-location filming there in Paris.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Very,
nice
very interesting. Yeah, so... And today we are moving on to The Creature from the Pit, the remake of The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Or The Pit and the Pendle.
Yeah.
Actually, though, I saw, it was either yesterday or the day before, that the stuntman actor who played the actual creature from the Black Lagoon back in the 1950s just died this week.
Well, that's unfortunate. And I know that Universal's been trying to... I know they've had plans to make a new movie. Of course, Universal monster movies, they've always had plans. They never really come to fruition. If they would, if they would move past putting Tom Cruise in a Mummy movie, it might work out to an extent. But yeah, but...
We've never seen that. Have you seen it? I haven't.
I've seen clips of it on YouTube. Okay. It's really not good.
We should probably watch it.
Yeah. But it's not like the Brendan Fraser Mummy. That one's just fun.
Yeah.
So, and I can't compare it to the original Boris Karloff. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
All right.
I thought it was kind of slow. But again, most of the monster movies from that time period, I've seen The Wolfman, I've seen The Mummy, seen Frankenstein, seen the original Dracula. And I know this is probably sacrilege. I know people love Bela Lugosi. But I thought his performance, again, in that was very, very slow. When you read the stage play that the movie is based on, it works much better. I mean, I could see him doing that because it's one of those things where you really have to keep the pace up. But in the movie, because they were trying to make him so mysterious, he talks and he moves very, very slowly. And it's to me, it doesn't seem as suspenseful as the stage play does.
I hear that the Spanish version is a lot better than the actual version. So,
didn't they literally film that at the same time?
Yeah, it was during the night the English version filmed during the day, and then the Spanish version came in. The Spanish crew came in during the night and filmed on the exact same sets, which is better than. We're just getting completely off topic from everything, but. Have you ever heard of the? I think it's the Colombian version of Breaking Bad. Oh, it's so awful. So, and it's not even filmed, on the same sets or anything. It was filmed in Colombia, and it stars a guy who looks about 30 years younger than Bryan Cranston did. So he looks way too young to be playing Walter White, or as he's called in that version, Walter Blanco. And it's just so terrible. But I hear the Spanish version of Dracula is very good. And I have seen that. I did a reaction to Frankenstein, that's here on the channel, as well as I did reviews, this was a long time ago, but I did reviews for Nosferatu, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and The Phantom of the Opera. All three of those silent films. So they were really interesting, although you kind of have to be in a mood to watch a silent movie.
Yeah.
Anywho. This is our roundabout way of saying we're watching The Creature from the Pit today. So, I doubt you have anything else to say.
I got nothing.
Then let's just go ahead and jump into this episode of Doctor Who. Here we go. A fake jungle. It's been so long. It's not as impressive.
Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows, who flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself.
New voice.
Yeah.
You've got Mr. Theseus and Ariadne.
Yes. If I hadn't produced that ball of string to find a way out of the labyrinth, they were going to unravel my scarf, the wretches.
All right, but what can you possibly do with the old jawbone of an ass?
Don't be a Philistine.
What?
That jawbone's been about a bit, you know.
Right, so what's this then?
Well, that's just a bit of
Samson
About
used it.
3, emergency transceiver, mistress.
You mean it's part of the TARDIS?
Correct, mistress.
Then why
That is not a good
plugged
voice.
in, Doctor?
What's it, Doctor? Curious material. Almost looks as if it were woven.
Red light, green light.
Introduce my assistant, Romana! Romana! Obviously not. All right, I won't bother you then. Can you get these things off me?
Man, how did you get caught? You literally saw it coming. This is why you bring K9.
Kind of semi-medieval, early Renaissance or high Middle Ages kind of costuming there. The guy with the whip, especially.
Go ahead.
What did you say?
I said go ahead and kill me. Commit suicide. Listen to that hirsute moron.
Yeah, who are you calling hairsuit?
You want to make something of it?
No, I just want to know what it means.
It means hairy. I'm a traveller. I'm a Time Lord. And I am not used to being assaulted by a collection of hairy, grubby little men.
Well, she's no call to get personal.
I don't intend to get used to it either.
Now, this is more the personality of Romana 1.
Yeah.
It's impossible. We detected nothing.
But this man did.
It's mistaken.
Well, to be fair, I did have a couple of gadgets which he probably didn't, like a teaspoon on an open mind.
You have failed me, Engineer Doran. Take him.
My lady, I beg you!
Doctor, you know more about the shell than you're prepared to say. Perhaps a little demonstration will make you more cooperative. Bring him.
She reminds me of a young Helen Mirren.
Good day.
Leave your dog behind.
Certainly not.
Then you don't leave.
K9.
Oh, bad fall there, old man.
He's not dead.
What's this?
We call it the pit.
Ah, you have such a way with words.
Wonder how they got the wolf weeds to move. Oh.
Good boy, K9. K9.
He's dead.
K9.
I mean, he's just covered in some weed.
Well, Doctor.
Well, bye.
So let's see who plays the lady addressed. Myra Francis. Nope. Doesn't sound familiar.
Alrighty. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure there was a signal at the end.
Yes.
K9's not dead, which... Come on, Romana. You gotta know a little bit of weed isn't gonna stop K9. You know, might give him a good time on a Friday afternoon, but... Anyway.
Oh, so many weed jokes.
Yeah, it's great.
Not that we would know.
Nah. Yeah, this is an interesting one so far.
Yeah.
I'm curious just what the obsession with metal is. Because the only thing I can think is that it's just that the bandits are trying to get as much metal as they can, whereas everyone else has all the metal, so therefore they are the more powerful.
Yeah. Again, this may be stretching. It may be that it's a limited resource, like because again, this is the late 70s, early 80s. Oil was a commodity that was very much in short supply at this point. We already had the first oil crisis in 73, and I think there was another one again in 81. So I don't, it may simply have something to do with that, or it may just be that the primitives that we saw there need metal to make weapons to fight against the upper class people there.
Yeah, it could be that. I was also thinking the name Adrasta is so close to Astra, which we had, a couple episodes back, so I kind of thought, boy, it'd be funny if they got the original Romana actress to play Adastra, just as a full loop around, basically. Yeah. But no. And then, yeah, so it's also just a strange thing that they don't believe in... I mean, I guess this kind of makes sense. That they don't believe that there could be any sort of creature that would create this gigantic egg, but they also have weird creatures in pits that they toss people into. Yeah. But I mean, I guess to an extent it can make sense. Yeah. So,
by the way, there's an old Latin phrase that is ad astra, which literally means to the stars. and there's a whole it's a ad astra something that literally means to the stars through conflict or through work. So I don't know if that's meant to be some kind of clue here to this.
Yeah, maybe. And then they also, I'm also just curious, sort of like what level of technology they have. It can't be too crazy. Like, they have engineers, but they don't really have any other sort of big technology. It just seems to be a lot of metal. But they also have sentient weeds. Maybe that's just sort of the outlier of the story.
Well, again, what a lot of people who've never studied world history, you may have taken, one course or two when they were in school. The Egyptians were huge engineers. I mean, they built the pyramids, they built the shaduf, which was how they got water out of the Nile and all that sort of stuff, and yet never invented the wheel. All right, the Romans, who literally engineered the hell out of Europe, built roads, built aqueducts, brought water down for millions of people, did all of this incredible stuff, and yet didn't have what we would consider today modern conveniences. Never figured out any kind of fuel other than horsepower and human power. So there may be some parallel there. I can't see where this is going yet. But again, I'm very interested. And again, the costumes are very interesting because the kind of dark clothing and the turbans and everything are really not something that you would normally put in a jungle.
Oh, yeah.
Those are, again, things that you would see in more of a desert climate or even a savanna type climate. So kind of interesting. I'd be fascinated to know from our BBC viewers what production they rated to get these costumes.
Yeah, they just had they knew they could easily build a couple jungle sets, and then they just went to the nearby warehouses and saw what wasn't being used that week. So. Alrighty, part
So
2.
it's a very North African, Western Asia kind of thing, and I can't think of any major production. I mean, the only thing I can think of from that time period would have been Lawrence of Arabia, which would have been early 1900s. But so it would be, please, if you know what this is from, please tell us.
Yeah.
Well, Doctor, now I have you both. Now you're bound to be cooperative.
Notice they don't have any other weapons other than spears and knives and clubs either.
Well.
If I were you, my dear, I would pray that he was dead already. Then he would at least be spared the stress of being eaten alive. Come away from the pit, my dear. Believe me, there is no
Just
way.
happen to
he's
have
going
rock
find
climbing
out.
gear in his coat. His
Everest
coat,
in easy stages.
coat must be like the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside.
Well.
It's in Tibetan.
Pie Paha.
Do not be afraid.
I could have used you too.
Oh, so it was the buckle that they gave out, and not his not strong at all scarf.
Our researchers divide into two categories. The ones who have got close enough to find out something about it,
Yes.
and the ones who are still alive.
But you must know something about it.
It kills people. What more is there to know?
Oh, where does it come from? Is it a native of this planet?
Where does it go? Where does it come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
You do know about the shell.
I was with the doctor when he found it.
Yes, Madame Corella told me, but you still haven't answered my question.
And there are some questions. It's...
Oh! Now, my dear, I'll ask you just once more. You do know about the shell?
Yes.
Good.
I'm sure we'll get along famously.
Man, you are lucky Leela's not here. You'd be dead.
You're cute.
Devil in the dark. It's a Horta.
Ugh.
Oh dear, that's really unfortunate.
I don't know if I can show that on YouTube.
Oh. How did the BBC let them get away with that?
I don't know.
And thank you for saving me from that creature.
Oh, don't mention it, sir. As my dear mother always used to say, born under the sign of Praetus, middle cusp she was, if you can help anybody, like preventing them from being eaten by a monster, then do so. They might be grateful, so I did.
Indeed you did, and I am grateful. Your mother was obviously a very fine woman. I'm the doctor. Who are you?
I told her that she would have visitors from beyond the stars.
A bit rash, wasn't it?
Well, it seemed a safe enough bet at the time. It's a great attention getter, you know. I do it very well. I see a creature coming to you from beyond the stars. I've done it in all the courts on the planet. It usually goes down very well.
Yes, I can see it might, but the lady addressed her.
Oh, she grew very nasty. What sort of creature, she wanted to know. Well, I stalled a bit, you know, a little professional
Vagueness.
discretion. And she threw me down here. Where are you from?
Me, oh, from beyond the stars, you know.
Oh, so I was right.
Yes.
And then a dresser grew nasty with you and threw you down here as well.
Me? No. I jumped.
Jumped.
Yes. Do you think she's frightened of someone coming from beyond the stars?
What do you mean? Well, I mean, if they're ransacking our camp, they can't be looking after her palace at the same time, now, can they? You mean? I mean that Adrasta's palace isn't going to be very heavily guarded, so... Who owns all the mineral
Monty
wealth?
Python.
Exactly. And if it isn't going to be properly guarded because her guards are going to be here looking for us, then we ransack the palace? Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. Get your weapons, my lovely boy.
What else floats? A duck.
Well, at least the creature has...
She owns the only mine there is.
The only mine?
Yes, this one. Well, that's the point, don't you see? Although it's been worked dry, all the metal on the planet came out of it, and it all belongs to her.
Have you noticed Tom Baker is very sweaty in this one?
Yes, it's the source of her power.
Go after it. Yes. Why not?
I can think of a dozen good reasons. You're mad. He's mad. It's all been too much for him. Oh, you wouldn't find me doing a crazy thing like that. Here, wait for me.
Very sharp dialogue here. Now, I know some of the other viewers have said that they didn't like the humor that's been injected into it, but that's what keeps it going.
Oh, yeah.
Standing on my
Let me see who Organon is. No. Again, he reminds me of Jamie. What's his name? He was in Star Trek First Contact. The guy who played the inventor of the...
Oh, Zephram Cochrane?
Yeah.
I don't know his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, but... Well, the Doctor has been consumed by the nutsack. It is very unfortunate.
Oh, dear.
Now look, because I know the comments are going to say that when they were 12 years old, they didn't see it. I think. But now when it's further away, like when you see like the whole thing and it's just kind of blobbious,
Gelatinous.
yeah, that's fine. But the first shot was really bad. So it's all right. It's fine. We will get past it. But we're also at the ages of 25 and
71.
we are also still not mature enough to look at that and not think this. So
I always said, hey, I thought I was a good teacher for American sixth graders because I had an 11-year-old sense of humor like they did.
Yeah, so it does make me wonder if when they saw it on set, if they just laughed, because it's a little much, you know. It's a little much, and if it was just the Blob, that would be fine. But the fact that you just threw in the tendril at the end of it, that looked pretty bad. That looked pretty bad. So
I'm wondering if this is one of those series that could have benefited from later CGI going in and replacing that.
Maybe. Well, and I know that this season does not have a very high opinion with the fan base. I'm sure there's people that there are fans of each story because that's how big the fan base is. But I've heard that generally this is not a well-received season, apart from City of Death, which is apparently considered one of the best episodes in general. So
I think it's definitely one of Tom Baker's best.
Yeah. But honestly, this one, I'm enjoying it fine.
Yeah. And again, it's... Although there are some silliness with the special effect there, I like the fact that there is banter between, for example, the Doctor and Organon, and even with Adrasta and K9 and whoever the lady, her number one, and Romana. That, to me, helps fill in and really does establish the characters very, very well in what so far is a relatively limited plot.
Yeah.
All right? They've landed on a planet that has mostly jungles. Very hard to make tools to cultivate and find food because there's a lack of metal. Other than that, what has this plot done so far? Literally nothing.
Yeah, honestly, it's like there's a pit, there's a creature there, there's an egg. I'm pretty sure that they're gonna connect the dots that the creature laid the egg, but at the same time, they're not getting back to the egg per se. Like I'm sure it'll circle back around to it, but at this moment, it seems like the creature and the egg are just kind of separate things. So yeah, it's not doing a lot, but you're right. It is just more entertaining.
Yeah.
So, which honestly, because that's the thing when we heard about Destiny of the Daleks, that according to the behind the scenes, is that Terry Nation wrote down plot notes, and then Douglas Adams actually wrote it into a script. I would think, well, if he was going to do that, that episode would have been a lot funnier, or just a lot more interesting, But it really did feel like an old school kind of Terry Nation slower script. This feels a bit more like that, and that's not even to take away from the writer if it was just all him, but we know that Douglas Adams is the script editor right now. So this feels a bit more in line with that. Yes. That it's like you take a story which, for all intents and purposes, is pretty basic, but you add in some interesting stuff, Like Organon does sort of remind me of what was it at the Ribos operation? The guy who he had theories about the stars in the sky. Oh, they're not diamonds; they're actually different suns and stuff. But he was cast aside. Yeah. That was a very interesting character, and it feels like a sort of similar character here.
And again, I mentioned the Monty Python business. There's a lot of that kind of very subtle humor in this, which again, Monty Python was making it big in the United States in the late 70s and early 80s. They were playing on PBS, if I recall correctly, like Doctor Who was at the time. So this is, again, I think way more enjoyable because of the humor, because without it, this is a story that so far, in 2 episodes, has gone nowhere.
Yeah, so...
And I did mention, this reminds me of that episode in the original series of Star Trek, The Devil in the Dark, where the Horta is killing miners because the miners who are looking for, I can't remember what it was, the titanium or some kind of metallic spheres, didn't realize that the spheres were the eggs of the Horta. And once Kirk and Spock were able to convince the Horta to work with them, then the eggs were protected, and the Horta were then, making tunnels for the miners so that they would all become rich. It's, again, very similar story. I don't know if that has any connection at all, but again, that was one of the most enjoyable of the Star Trek series, and this is very enjoyable so far.
Yeah. And I guess another thing with the egg, the Doctor didn't mention to Adrasta that the egg is also slightly metallic. So he just said that it was an egg and it could be alive. But he did mention that, so that could also be like, well, we have this terrible creature that we just sort of, leave in this pit. But if it made the egg, that could solve your problem. Of course, that creates a new problem that Adrasta won't have a monopoly anymore, but it could be good for the planet as a whole, so...
I've never seen anything like it.
It's a metallic worm.
Anyway, the doctor's behind there, and we've got to get him out. It's as hard as rock. It'll take gunpowder to blast a hole in this.
Gunpowder?
And even that.
Have they shown us any weapons up to this point other than swords and spears and whips?
No.
Hello. I am the doctor. Friend.
Oh, dear.
Nothing. Not a thing. How are we going to talk to each other, eh?
Someone on set had to think it, right?
Oh no, they've got pointed sticks.
You must think.
Hello, everybody.
Doctor, are you all right?
Yes, I'm fine.
I'm so worried about you.
Oh, you shouldn't be worried. Time Lords have 90 lives.
How many have you got through
About
then?
130.
How did you do it?
What?
I demand you tell me how you broke through the shell.
I asked the creature very nicely. My pleasure, it said.
Liar! The creature can't talk without... Guardmaster, take a look.
I'll go with
Oh,
him.
that's not suspicious.
All right, K9. I'll carry you.
He's definitely a lot lighter than he looks.
Yeah.
Carella's going to kill you and you with your hair all messed up.
Doctor, I can't do anything about my hair if I'm holding K9.
Oh, so you are. I didn't notice. Here, let me help you. K9, ready? Fire!
Ooh. Good shot.
Get away from here! Get away! Or the doctor dies! No! No! No!
Alrighty. I mean, I'm not sure. Okay, so obviously she knows what it is.
Yes.
Because she said it. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, what... I guess it must just be because she needs the monopoly on metal. And this thing must produce metal from its eggshells. Now, what the specific thing is, I'm not sure. So... But other than that, I mean, it's still an interesting story.
Yeah.
And it is nice to have K9 back. Different voice and all. So... yeah, I don't know. Because I'm also wondering... If she knows what it is, why wouldn't other people know what it is, too, specifically?
Yeah.
And if it hasn't been getting what it needs to eat, what does it eat? Does it just eat more metal? I don't know.
What's happening? What are we doing here? I don't know. What is this thing?
Adrasta!
Let's get out of here.
I was just saying, Lady Andressa, that...
Oh.
Kainana, I thought you were meant to be guarding her.
Apologies, Master. I am immobile. I was overpowered by the wolf weed.
Weed does that to you.
Order your dog to kill the Tythonian. Don't listen to him. It's just the ravings of a demented space tramp. Set the wolf weed on him. Kill him!
Let him speak.
Huntsman, I order you.
Let him speak.
Now, if my deductions are correct...
They're not.
Barato came here 15 years ago to propose a trading agreement. Tythonus is a planet rich in metallic ores and minerals. Am I not right, Canine?
Checking databank. Affirmative, Master.
That was a good guess.
Fools! You listen to the opinions of an electric dog?
How do you know what
Tythonians
electricity is?
exist on ingesting chlorophyll, large quantities of it, judging by their size.
Unfortunately, I ran foul of this evil woman who tricked me into the pit. If you will forgive me, I have a score to settle.
So I think have we.
Ugh. She will now be digested for 1,000 years.
And with her, die the dark ages for this planet.
Okay, well,
Barato,
problem solved.
I'm sorry for all the unpleasantness. Thank you for the weeds. My pleasure. They're the first solid meal I've had in 15 years.
We don't know anything about him. We don't even know how he got here.
Yes, we do. In an egg.
In an egg?
In an egg. When the shell's complete, it's a blindingly simple space vehicle complete with photon drive.
Well, I didn't see a photon drive.
Well, of
Quite
course
the
he's not
egg.
going to leave it lying around where just anyone can take it. He protected it very carefully.
How? But, Doctor, you've played right into his hands. You've let him go.
Yes.
Well, can't you say anything but yes the whole time?
Yes. After he's told us whatever it is,
Yes.
and before he reaches his space vehicle to escape,
Yes.
do you remind me to give him back his photon drive? Yes.
Can't we contact Tythonus?
The neutron star has been on its way for several years. Like most stars, it has no guidance system. There is no way of stopping it.
But surely... And you spin out this vessel from the threads in your own body like you did in the pit?
The principle is the same.
And can you produce aluminium?
Of course.
I wasn't going to say anything, alright?
We can exert short bursts of enormous gravitational pull on the star, slow it up while you weave your eggshell round it, and then let go.
And the thing will go spinning off harmlessly into deep space.
Right.
Let me remind you, Doctor, that I came here to offer help to the planet of Chloris. They imprisoned me in a pit and starved me for 15 years.
Well,
I am disinclined
one
to
person
commit
did that.
suicide, Leather.
I'll put my trust in this solid metal.
There's another 6 inches to add to your collection, old man.
Ooh.
It's no use threatening to kill me. I shan't tell you while I'm alive, and I certainly won't tell you when I'm dead. I don't believe your stupid story for a moment.
And if it's true, you're condemning us all to death.
That's a chance I'm prepared to take.
For what? For this heap of scrap iron? Hmm?
Yes.
Yes, Master?
Destroy it.
No! No! You're destroying our metal!
We've got to dematerialize!
It's a draft contract for a trading agreement. Do you know what this is?
Yes.
What?
It's a draft contract for a trading agreement.
Oh, Chloris, did you know that?
It was written in the stars.
Alrighty.
Alright, a very weird spin in the last episode.
Yeah.
Not that it was wrong, but it came completely out of nowhere. But it was still enjoyable. But just, yeah, it kind of changed the tone of everything.
Yeah, it felt like the last episode was just running 10 minutes over, And so they were like, well, just throw it to a 4th episode and you'll figure something out for the ending. Again, it's not bad. It's just that now we have to, all right, we have to deal with Adrasta. All right, that's dealt with. Okay, now we have to deal with the Erato. It's like, all right, well, that's pretty much dealt with. We took the photon drive. All right, now we got to deal with this Corella, the assistant there. Well, that was dealt with. All right, let's deal with the star. All right, that was dealt with. I guess we're done.
By the way, if I recall correctly, and I can't remember if you took Latin or not, I think errata or errato literally means error or mistake in Latin. But don't know if that's something that Douglas Adams threw in there or not.
Maybe. That would make sense, because I know in a lot of card games, whenever they need to change the text of a card, they call it an errata. So, an interesting episode. I suppose I can see why some people wouldn't think it would be that great, but see, I don't know, because it's such a roll of the dice with Doctor Who fans, honestly.
Yeah.
Because there will be episodes where I'm like, well, that was all right, and people will say, no, it's one of my absolute favorites, for whatever reason, and that's fine if you think that. That's completely fine. You're allowed to like what you like. But I kind of look at this and I'm like, this was good. It was entertaining. So I don't see how this would be one of the not great episodes that season 17 has. I get Destiny of the Daleks.
Yeah.
That's just kind of boring. But this one, it's like, it was entertaining enough. I think it only works because of the comedic writing.
Yeah.
If it didn't have that, then, it'd just be a pretty standard episode. So
parts 1 through 3, very good through line. And again, the last episode simply seems to come out of nowhere. It does not seem to fit in stylistically with the rest. But again, you have to deal with each of the various threads that you finally tied up. It just doesn't come out to a very expected sort of tapestry.
Yeah, it's basically something that couldn't be shortened down just into 3 episodes, so that episode 3 ends on Adastra, but they didn't have a lot to sort of fill in, all right, well, what do we do after that? And it's like, well, there's this neutron star that's headed for the star of Chloris that'll destroy the entire solar system. You have to get through all these things. We have to bring the bandits back a bit and deal with them. So the bandits, who really didn't have a use in this story, they weren't really a part of the story. I guess they were just there to explain the purpose of how rare metal is on Chloris specifically. So which
it was kind of odd that they, after Adrasta and her people went down into the pit and they went in, it wasn't to overthrow anybody, it was simply to steal all of the metal that they could get their hands on.
So that was interesting. And also, I will say, just the whole thing of, it was, Adrasta who somehow, without anybody else knowing, she somehow managed to trick Erato into the pit and leave them down there for 15 years. Or maybe if she had guards, maybe she killed them all to keep them quiet. But it's I guess it's, it's all to keep, so that she could keep her power with her, the very precious metal that she has. She would remain in power because she has the monopoly on metal. I understand that. But at the same time, if you're the leader of this planet in this very lucrative trade agreement, would you not still have the power anyway, if not more power? Because all of this is coming through you, and yes, everyone on the planet now will have metal, but if you're at the center of that, then you're probably going to do a lot better. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's I understand why she did this, but at the same time, it's you could have probably benefited greatly from this trade agreement, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess it's not... She didn't look at the potential power she could have had. She was just clinging to the power she had right now.
Yeah.
So yeah. But it is a very interesting thing, just the dynamic of these two planets, that this is a place where there's very little metal, but a lot of jungle, but that doesn't really suit the inhabitants, whereas on Tythonius, or whatever it was called, they thrive on chlorophyll, but they're starting to run out of that. They've created so much metal.
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am, but again, this goes back to what I was saying about the oil embargo, because many of the places in Western Asia, what we used to call the Middle East, that had all of the oil were literally desert areas. Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and places like that. And the idea was, when they cut off the supply of oil, which the Western world needed, the question was, what are they going to do with all of that oil? They can't eat it. They can't use it to fertilize their country and turn it into a planet that will, or to an area that will grow crops. So, like what's happening here, they're essentially boxing themselves in with this resource, which is literally useless to them.
Yeah.
So again, if this is a comment on the oil crisis of the 70s and 80s, that's kind of an interesting take on it.
Yeah, definitely. So, and I will say, sometimes, because I'm just looking down my notes, I will say sometimes we talk about characters that don't have a point, and when you really stop and think about it, Organon didn't really have a point, but I really enjoyed him.
Yeah.
So, because as an astrologer, he doesn't really, again, with the exception of sort of like the bandits, it's just to sort of show the power that Adrasta has, It's that, she didn't like what he was saying. He didn't really say anything bad or anything. It's just, you will be met by visitors from the stars. He was just a little late, or a little early on his prediction, so she chucked him into a pit.
Well, what if, though, his prophecy was about Erato, because he was a visitor from the stars, and she tossed him into the pit to prevent him from telling anybody else who Erato was.
Well, that's true.
Or figuring out who Erato was.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So, I guess we just assumed that that he was talking about the Doctor and Romana.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then we had the sort of back and forth with K9, which the new voice is okay. It'll take me some time to get used to it if this is the voice we're going for. I prefer the original voice, so I'm not sure, because I remember there was something like the voice actor for K9 was like on a vacation for one episode, so they didn't use him, or they just had someone else who was really close. But this voice is far different from the original voice, which is strange.
And they didn't explain it either, because at one of the last episodes we saw previously, they were talking about how he had gotten laryngitis, and how is that possible since he doesn't have a larynx? And then they could have said, the laryngitis apparently is permanent, and now he will sound differently. Just throw in a line like that.
Yeah, which I think that was also, now that you mentioned that, I think that was the thing, was that the voice actor had laryngitis, so he couldn't provide K9's voice that episode, so they just wrote that into the script. So, but yeah, you could have done that, and it's not a terrible voice, it's very different from the original voice. But the back and forth with K9 was interesting, just and Adrasta trying to use K9, but it doesn't really work. And the whole thing of like, K9 will do this, or I'll kill Romana. And it's like, well, if you kill Romana, K9's obviously, he's got nothing left to lose, so he's not going to obey. So that was an interesting thing. And honestly, I guess it just makes sense that Adrasta, she's not a very smart villain. It's like she got lucky by tossing Erato into the pit, but other than that, she doesn't really have. She's basically outclassed by smarter people like the Doctor and Romana.
And one thing, I liked her at the beginning because she seemed very much in control, knew what was going on. The further and further she began to panic, the less in control she was. And I would have preferred if she simply had been able to keep that strength and that power right up until the very end, instead of going, bananas, bat crap crazy, whatever we want to call it. But again, that's not to detract. That's simply, as a director, I would have tried to allow her to maintain a little bit more power, literally right up to the point where she is forced to grab the communicator and start talking.
Yeah,
because she just seemed to be very hysterical towards the end.
Yeah, that huntsman turned on a dime, though. Yeah. Like, as soon as there was a possibility that she was lying, he was like, well, let's hear this out. I'll call off the weed for a little bit, which I guess, again, the weed does kind of make sense that it's, this jungle planet is the only... I don't understand how it works whatsoever for a race that really doesn't seem to have technology. So, but whatever, it's an interesting thing.
And that one weird reference to gunpowder.
Yeah, they mentioned gunpowder once, but where is that?
Yeah, there were no guns anywhere.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe that's just in a different city or something. But you would think that any city that has gunpowder would immediately outclass a city that has metal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Even if, unless it's that, they have gunpowder, but they don't have the metal to make the weapons to use the gunpowder. That's the only thing I can think. Yeah. So, because the only metal on that planet was in that mine, and she owned it.
If I recall correctly, and again, this is vague historical memory, I think when the Chinese invented black powder, their original cannons that they were using were carved out of wood or stone. I'm not sure that they were metal, but again, I could be wrong about that.
But yeah, so and then I guess just the slow reveal that she knows more than she's letting on and everything, and that does sort of play into her descent. But you're right that it does. Pretty much at the top of episode 3, she's kind of already lost it, and it just keeps chipping away until you get the confrontation with Arado. But you're right that she pretty quickly loses control. But I guess you could say it's because she's dealing with people of intelligence that she never really has to deal with. I mean, her greatest enemy are a bunch of bandits, a bunch of goofy bandits that just come in and steal some metal every so often. So, they also mentioned the ladies of Adrasta. It's like, this girl Romana, she must be one of them. And then they never kind of brought that back.
Never saw ladies in waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure what that meant. I guess it's it's one of those things. It's not supposed to be important. But I argue, if there's something in here that's not supposed to be important, why did you write it into the script? I don't know. I mean, I guess you could have just said it was, she must just be from the city, and Adrasta will try to get her back or something. So I don't know. And then so the shell, the egg shell, was specifically a ship, which is why it is sort of metallic and was sending that signal back to the Tythonians. So that was kind of interesting. And then you had the giant communication mirror device, which was interesting. And I will say, at the very least, they made the creature work, and pretty much after it worked, it was just sort of blobular, but it worked. And then you put the dish on it, okay, this all works, it's all fine, it's all good. Did you have to lead with it coming in dick first in the cave? Did you have to do that?
And what's odd about that is that later on it did show other appendages.
Yeah.
So if it had first come out with all of those appendages, and then later on, using just the one to try to communicate with, but still, that was a visual that is unparalleled in any science fiction that I have seen, other than something you would see on South Park or some other kind of something that was literally trying to make science fiction dirty.
Yeah, and then he talked into it. Like come on, somebody on set had to know what they were doing. So, and if any of you were watching this as kids and you didn't see that, good. I hope you didn't think of that while you were watching this episode. But we're not kids anymore, so it seems like a joke on the Orville.
Yeah.
It definitely seems like Yaphet or something like that, like some dumb joke on the Orville. So yeah, it's okay. And after that initial couple times, it got better, and it was just a sort of blob, and that was fine. But yeah, that initial point, that was weird. That was rough. So yeah. I guess that's pretty much it. Pretty much the only thing I wrote down from this last episode was just the neutron star that I think is supposed to have an E in it.
Yeah.
There we go. I will say that's just, at the very least, it's like, wow, that's some pretty advanced technology that they can just chuck a star at another star to kill people. I did find it a little strange, though, that it's like, I understand it's like, oh, this is an act of aggression that they would, lock away our ambassador and everything. I get that, but that planet is very valuable to you, so I don't think you would destroy it like that. I think you would come in and conquer them and, maybe even enslave them or something, or just kill them and then take all their chlorophyll. But I don't think they would have destroyed that planet if it was so necessary. I mean, unless... We've seen a lot of jungle planets on Doctor Who. Any Dalek episode, you can easily find a jungle. So maybe they had a bunch of candidates, and this was just the first one they sent an ambassador to. So, I don't know. But overall, yeah, it was a pretty decent episode.
Enjoy.
So, yeah, you got anything else?
No, other than we normally record this on a Saturday morning. This is now Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
And I keep looking up at the clock, if you've noticed me doing that, because I have to go to work.
Yeah. So, we might as well cut it off here. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check that out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.